Part two of the 2019 3rd Congressional District, North Carolina GOP Convention. Now, before I get back into the muck and the mire of this year's proceedings, there were a couple things that I left off in the introduction of Part 1 that I should have put in Part 1, but hey, it's good that I'm doing a two-parter here. Reason why is because yesterday, time I was bumping up against to the time when it was time for me to go to work, to my real world, pay the bills. Hopefully my career will get better someday, but right now it's just a job event. Okay. So that's why this is a two-parter affair. Okay. But there were a couple things I left off, which is I'm glad I'm doing two parts here. The first of which is, let's talk about the city that this event was held in, Greenville, North Carolina. Okay. Greenville is a fairly small city. It's just under 100,000. It's like 92,000 people. Okay. In terms of population, it's not even the top 10, probably barely top 20 as far as largest city in North Carolina. But the thing that should scare you, any time you're in Greenville has the highest motor vehicle accident rate in the state for about the last 3 or 4 consecutive years. And before that, there was about a 10-year period where Greenville and Wilmington traded places for who had the highest motor vehicle accident rate in the state. Okay. But of course, then again, Greenville was what? 10th, 12th in population. They had the highest motor vehicle accident rate, which means it's very dangerous to drive in Greenville. Okay. Also, same with Wilmington, too. Okay. Now, fortunately, where I live, Greensboro is the 3rd largest city in North Carolina. But I believe it's only 5th or 6th as far as highest accident rate. Okay. So, if you're having Greenville or Wilmington, anywhere in North Carolina for that matter, or the South, especially Florida, you really need to be on your A game when you drive a motor vehicle. Make sure you're always using your turn signal. You're always looking out for crazy people doing crazy things. And try to be one of those crazy people who insist on turning left across 6 lanes of traffic. Okay, even though the dum-dums at the NCDOT have made it say it's legal, doesn't necessarily mean it's the smartest thing to do. Okay, don't do those kind of turns unless it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, there's no cars on the road. Then it's fine. But when it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and there's heavy traffic, don't turn left across a multi-lane road, or just don't do it. I mean, when I was in Greenville for this event, I arrived. It's about 7:15, 7:30 Saturday morning, and I already, saw like 2 or 3 knuckleheads just doing crazy things that I, as a, pretty good driver, not perfect, but pretty good, would never dream of doing. Okay. Second, again, this event was in Greenville. Okay. This event took place. There was not one TV station, but 2 television stations within a mile radius of the Hilton Greenville. Guess how many of those TV stations covered this convention? 0. None. Also, the main newspaper in Greenville, did they cover this convention? No, they did not. The media coverage for this convention was piss poor, okay? And look, the 10th District Convention, nobody for the media was covering except for me. 13th District, same thing. 2nd District, same thing. But the 3rd District took place in Again, it was very close to two TV stations. Plus, there was a election, a primary election for a seat in Congress 3 days after this convention. There was like 20 candidates that spoke on this day, and nobody from the media was there except for me. Not to get all Michael Savage arrogant on y'all, but I'm the exclusive coverage of this convention, and for the state convention, yeah, there'll be a few, there'll be some media coverage, but you're just not going to get as comprehensive and as detailed coverage for that as you are from moi. Okay. Oh yeah, and another thing was, guess who drove 5 hours and over 350 miles to be at this convention? Me. So to call these TV stations lazy, oh yeah, WNCT and WITN, to call those two television stations lazy, is the understatement of the century. I mean, come on. Okay. So let me go into the back to our convention coverage here. At this point of the convention, we are on to statewide candidates for office. Okay. And we're going to start with the North Carolina Supreme Court judicial candidates. They're going to be on the ballot in 2020. Very important. Very, very important. Because right now the Democrats, it's a 6-1 majority in the Supreme Court and an 8-7 majority in the Court of Appeals. So when the Republicans decide to pass good legislation, guess what unfortunately happens a lot of times? Yeah, the Democratic controlled courts strike it down. Okay, so Tamara Barringer was the first candidate up for bid that day. She says she's an advocate for foster children and she is strongly against human trafficking. She works as a law and a business professor and also teaches accounting classes for students who are pursuing master's degrees in accounting. Okay. Then we had Keenan Drum, who was speaking on behalf of Jefferson Griffin. I've already covered him many times in other videos. It's the same old campaign speech. Michael LaPaglia, Secretary of State, told a very good story about how he was actually born during a political convention, and he was born on the night of the 1972 Democratic National Convention, and his dad was watching at home while his mom was giving birth to Michael. Next, we have Miriam Chu, who is running to be the next vice chair of the NCGOP. She says in 2017, the Democrats produced, in North Carolina, they produced an abortion bill similar to Virginia and New York. She said the Republicans only have a 6-seat margin in the House and a 3-seat cushion in the Senate. And this is also with a Democratic governor who would be very happy to sign a Virginia and a New York style abortion bill. The focus, she says that the party needs to do a better job of focusing on individual contributions, encouraging $5 or $10 contributions, rather than always going after the big $5,000, $10,000 and up mega donors. Mrs. Chu is retired, and she will be a full-time working vice chair. She's the only candidate who can stake that claim on the vice chairman's race. And one of her biggest priorities is to work with the district chairs, county chair association, as well as anybody else among the districts and counties, I should say. Okay. Roger Farina is running for DCCA chairman. He wants to say that a lot of people don't know what the DCCA is. It is the District and County Chairmen's Association, and it is a training arm of the North Carolina Republican Party. Mr. Farina is served in the military. He also served as a school board member for Harnett County. He says that really getting out the vote in the precincts is key in an election. There are 2,704 precincts in North Carolina. Mr. Farina's precinct finished 9th overall in 2018 in get out the vote. And by the way, his precinct is an unincorporated and very rural Harnett County. Farina wants to continue the Dan Forest and Hal Weatherman training sessions. And he also has a very good goal of building a broadcast studio at the NCGOP headquarters to do various vlogs and training videos. Next we have Matt Mercer, who is speaking on behalf of Michael Whatley, running for NCGOP chair. And he said Mr. Whatley's priority is to hire a full-time campaign director to win Supreme Court races. And then we have Sammy Webb, state auditor. And let me tell you about Sammy Webb. If you have never heard Mr. Webb speak, you need to. He's the kind of person, you think of a candidate running for auditor, and their campaign speech you would think would be the most boring thing you'll ever hear in your life. Because what does an auditor do? They check to make sure that the state is spending money on what it's supposed to be, and that sort of thing. They're checking the books. Auditor is sort of it's an upgraded word for bookkeeper kind of thing. But Sammy Webb, he uses his speeches to really as a point of outreach, I should say. And he says he actually used to be a Democrat, okay? He left the Democratic Party because of the gay marriage issue. He was a deacon in the church, and he decided he just couldn't handle being a Democrat anymore after the Dems went for pro-gay marriage. So then he got off the couch and started campaigning. He says we are at a crossroads. This country can take a left or take a right. And I encourage you, as an activist, to take a right. He says he wants to reach every voter in North Carolina, not just Republican voters, and go to county GOP meetings all across the state. And he was actually invited to speak to the Northampton County chapter of the NAACP. Yeah. And he says, look, we have to take our message to every community in North Carolina, and we cannot let the conservative message be bottled up amongst just conservatives. Then we have Sherry Lynn Womack, who is speaking on behalf of the great candidate for chair, Mr. Jim Womack. And I've talked about her before, but there's some different things that you say, and they're very good things. Guess the only candidate in this race, in the chairman's race, I should say, whose spouse or wife is helping them, is Jim Womack, which is pretty neat. And Sherry is just as passionate and as fiery as Jim is, and she always has this saying that going to church every Sunday doesn't make you any more of a Christian as going to Burger King makes you any more of a Whopper, is her little catchphrase. And they've been married for, I think, 27 years and have 3 children, and they both served in the military, combined 50 years experience. And when you hear Sherry, Glenn, and Jim talk, you automatically can say, yeah, they're very polished people, and yes, that military experience definitely has helped them a lot. Then we have John Lewis running for NCGOP chair. Okay, I've talked about him a little bit before, and all the candidates that are running for chair and vice chair, I will have a video up probably next weekend, talking about who I'm going to vote for and why, and also examine every candidate in the race and their strengths and weaknesses and so forth. But John Lewis, he was the only candidate in the entire day, okay, he used all 4 minutes of his time. Imagine that. Okay. Now we have John Ritter, not the actor John Ritter, the candidate for lieutenant governor. He's an attorney in Moore County. He's a fairly young guy. I believe he's in his late 30s. Native of North Carolina. His priority is to expand education and economic opportunities and also make community college more accessible. He started his legal education at Montgomery College and then went to UNC to get a double major in journalism and pre-law. Okay, now we have the district candidates. And before I go into district candidates, I need to check on something real quick. I just need a sweater and a jacket, and I could have reenacted the opening scene of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Okay. Back to politics now. Michael Michael Speciale. Okay, Speciale, not Speciale. Michael Speciale is Italiano, buono. Okay, the first candidate running to be next member of Congress in the 3rd Congressional District is Mike Speciale. He is on our preferred candidate list. In this race, I did not make an endorsement. I instead have had a list of candidates that I believe 5 candidates or so that I want people in District 3 to focus on, hopefully vote for them. None of them made the cut, unfortunately, in the April 30th primary. But looking back, Michael, 20 years military experience, served in the Marine Corps. He is a former chair of Craven County, the Republican Party. Started the Coastal Carolinas Taxpayer Association and was president of that. He has experience in the state legislature, and he says Congress is not the place for on-the-job training. Our next candidate, Phil Shepard, endorsed by the great Carolyn Justice, who was at the convention, saw me in the back, came and had a little chat and a friendly chat and shook hands and everything. Very, very nice lady. She's working for Phil Shepard. 36 years of working at Camp Lejeune. Currently in his 5th term in the North Carolina State Legislature. Chair of the Transportation Board. Says we need to restructure legal immigration as well as illegal immigration. I agree with him 100% on that. 100% rating from the American Conservative Union. National debt is out of control. He's for a balanced budget amendment. Good man. Very good man. Bring home money that's going overseas. Good. Also believes in term limits. Very strong candidate, Phil Shepard. Eric Rouse. When I think of the word Rouse in North Carolina, I think of Franklin Rouse, who was a former chair of the state party years ago. And his son, I believe son or grandson, is an old friend of mine. He used to live in Wilmington, now lives in Raleigh, and I believe he got married a couple years ago. Last I heard, he was working for State Farm, and now I think he's working somewhere in the state legislature. as a legislative aide or something like that. But Eric Rouse has worked in a minority position in Lenoir County. He's in his third term on the Lenoir County Board of Commissioner, and believe it or not, has teamed up with the majority Democrats and has cut taxes. Okay. Then we have Dr. Joan Perry, a Christian pro-life pediatrician, and she has never run for political office. She's in this race because, mainly because of the abortion issue. Okay. Mike Payment, a candidate for a 3rd district, was absent at this convention, so he did not speak, but he was on the list. When I think of the name Mike Payment and the fact that he was absent, well, he was probably out working, making money, or he was at the bank making a payment, and it was a very complicated payment that took 6 hours. I don't know. Michelle Nix, also on our preferred candidate list. She said the swamp does not want me in Washington. She says in this race there has been lots of contributions coming from out of state and coming from the swamp, aka Washington D.C., who are supporting moderate candidates. Michelle Nix is not a minority candidate. She is a conservative, and a very fine, principled conservative, I would say. There are some people out there, some people who are good friends of mine who want to poo-poo her as somebody who did not support Jim Womack in 2017, and also did not fight hard enough for Hassan Harnett back during his removal from the party in 2016. I would say to my friends who are poo-pooing Mrs. Nix, you need to learn to compartmentalize better. Michelle Nix is running for a congressional seat. She is not running again for a state party position, okay? The two are entirely different, okay? Michelle Nix has run has been an investment banker over the last about 20 years or so. The company she works for started with the $25 million book, and it's going to over $100 million on the books. And she wants everybody to remember to pick Nix at number 6 on the ballot. Pick Nix at 6. Dr. Greg Murphy, who I believe works as a urologist, I believe. He says, look, our Constitution is founded on we the people. He has served 2 terms in the North Carolina House, and he wanted to mention that the Declaration of Independence mentions God 4 times. The GOP, thankfully, has the word God still in its platform. The Democrats do not. In 2012, they took God out of their platform. And he wanted the audience to, he said, look, explain that to a Democrat. They will probably not be a Democrat for much longer. Dr. Greg Murphy. And as a little sidebar item here, Dr. Greg Murphy and Joan Perry ended up winning the race on Tuesday, April 30th. They will go now to a runoff election sometime in July. And Joan Perry, about her, she used to be a Democrat. Not only a Democrat, a fairly prominent Democrat who, as recently as 2012, was in a commercial for Democrat Mike McIntyre. Okay. Now, Greg Murphy, during his time as a legislature in the North Carolina State Legislature, he tended to be an establishment to moderate Republican. In this primary, he has run very, very hard to the right. Okay. However, after he won the election, the primary election, on April 30th, Greg Murphy immediately sorted out Women for Trump, He also immediately sought out the House Freedom Caucus to get their blessing and endorsement. So I think Greg Murphy is he's doing the Lindsey Graham dance, as I would call it in politics. In other words, you have a former establishment rhino Republican who all of a sudden sees the light. A light bulb goes off in their head, and all of a sudden, just like that, they become a very good, reliable, conservative Republican. Okay, so I think this is a Lindsey Graham moment for Greg Murphy, and I officially endorse him. Okay, for in the July runoff. Okay, and I wish him the very best of luck in that race, and hopefully he'll be the next congressman for the 3rd District. Okay, so at that time, after Greg Murphy spoke on April 26th, the convention adjourned for lunch at 11:54 a.m. Okay, for exactly 1 hour, I should say. And the thing, so we went and had the boxed lunch, and this is a very weird part of the day, okay, because what happened was there was a very long line for boxed lunches. Okay, I was about as excited in boxed lunches as I am excited about going to work later today, which is like low. Okay, so what I decided to do was I decided to refill my water jug. My water jug had it was like Walmart brand energy drink is what it was. So I refilled that. I walked outside to my car briefly, got a little fresh air. Okay, we used the bathroom. About 10-12 minutes later, the line was gone, but so were the boxed lunches. But you know, again, I knew it would be cold cuts, and I was not excited about that. So instead, I had some candy for my goodie bag, and I had some peanuts that I packed. And I found a couple little bottles of Mountain Dew that were freebie bottles, and I had that for lunch. But here's a point of improvement for the convention. If, you know, the convention, you know, if lunch is going to be an hour, it needs to be an hour. If it's going to be 30 minutes, be 30 minutes. But still, I just wish there was, you know, an option to not... a cheaper option, just watch convention, not pay for lunch. Okay, so after lunch, we had the presentation of the Walter B. Jones Jr. Memorial Award. And this was actually given to Walter Jones's wife, Jordan Hennessy, who is a young rising star in the North Carolina Republican Party, and Representative Norm Sanderson presented this award. It should be noted that Walter Jones Sr. represented the 3rd District as a Democrat from 1966 to 1994. Jones Jr. represented the district from 1995 until February of 2019. The 3rd District had really moved around a lot. The counties that were in it had moved around a lot over the years. There were only 6 core counties that have been in the district since 1966. They are Camden, Currituck, Dare, Hyde, Tyrell, and Pamlico. Okay. And now we go back into our 3rd District congressional candidates. Yippee! Jeff Moore. He says, I want to be part of conservative leadership, and we need to be unashamed about our values. And then we hear from Phil Law. He's also on our preferred candidate list. He says, illegal immigration is killing this country. He's been a Marine in Iraq and a businessman, and this is his 3rd time running in this for Congress. Francis DeLuca, who is also on our preferred candidate list. You need to support Dale Folwell in his battle with the legislature. He says, I will work every day to make Washington less important in people's lives. He said, He also rebuked Michael Speciale's statement that Congress is not on the job training. DeLuca said the founders wanted citizens to work for citizens. I think that is a very good, valid point. And we need a candidate who will capture the military vote. He said there's a candidate on the Democrat side, not named Alan Thomas, who is really well respected by the military. Fortunately, though, he lost to Alan Thomas in the Democrat primary. And then we have Don Cox, who was absent. So I think Don Cox went to Fort Knox to get some socks. And then we have Chimer Davis Clark Jr. He says we need term limits so that the American people get the best of the best. And then Gary Series said, I was born in the Socialist Republic of New Jersey. Mr. Gary talked about the beginning of the GOP in Wisconsin and said it was not founded on special interest. This meeting back in 1860 was a meeting of factory workers and farmers in Wisconsin. Then we have Celeste Carnes. And Celeste, and I believe it was her daughter or daughters, when I went for a walk at lunchtime and came back, they were sitting at my table, but I was like, hey, please, stay, and chatted for a little while. They're pretty cool people. I didn't know enough about Mrs. Carnes to put her on the preferred candidate list. Unfortunately. But Mrs. Carnes in her speech says we have got to reach out to younger voters and counteract the liberalism of the public school system. And she also says, and this is very key because I think she was the only candidate who said this in her speech, I will get behind whoever the Republican candidate ends up being. Then we have Paul Beaumont, who served in the U.S. Naval Academy and is an aerospace engineer and has 11 children. Wow. Graham Boyd works in agriculture and was the 1984 Future Farmers of America president. He orchestrated the tobacco buyout of $10 billion in 2004. It was the largest infusion of cash into North Carolina. And he also testified before a congressional committee. And let's see. Last candidate, the last quarterback in the fantasy football team. I think there are more candidates in District 3 race than there are actually quarterbacks who are rostered in a fantasy football league. It's crazy, huh? But Dr. Kevin Bacon, he originally is from California, okay? But then he did an impression of Ronald Reagan. He says, well, there are a few good people who come from the Golden State. Man, I really stink at doing Reagan impressions, but moving along. Said North Carolina is second in the USA for opiate abuse. Dr. Bacon says North Carolina should legalize marijuana. Says that in states that have legalized marijuana, opioid use has decreased. He also says more GOPers should speak out against the war. Walter Jones did. Okay. And then the chair of the convention had an announcement to make, and that was he introduced Sandy Smith, who's running against Tom Tillis, who's going to run against Tom Tillis in the Republican primary for U.S. Senate next year. Sandy Smith basically just waved her hand at the crowd, did not say anything. Now we have the Jan Grubb Award. This was given to, and it should be noted, this award has not been given out in the last couple of years. So this is an award that they could give every year, but they're very particular and have very high standards about who gets this award, and I think that's a good thing. But Carl Pickle was this year's award winner. He's been an activist for 52 years and has registered over 800 voters as Republicans in Northeast North Carolina. And he has helped elect 2 commissioners and a sheriff in Pasquotank County for the first time, get this, first time since Reconstruction, way back in 1877. Can you believe that? That's impressive. And also, Carl is a very selfless man. He transports many people to doctor's appointments in Pasquotank County who don't have transportation. So Carl Pickle, very, very well-deserved, and I wish him, on behalf of the Conservative Pelican, congratulations to Carl Pickle on the Jan Grubb Award. Okay, now the Plan of Organization report. Usually, this is the most comprehensive and most fun part of the convention. Unfortunately, though, Bob Pruitt, who is on the Plan of Organization Committee for District 3, was not able to attend this convention. It was the first absence he's had in over 20 years of attending the district conventions. And he has pneumonia. He's 83 years old, so you worry a little bit about that. But he, as far as I know, was able to make he was down and out for about a week. But last I've heard, he's doing very well. He was at the Republican Men's Convention in Raleigh last week. That convention I did not attend. Biggest reason was I had family in town, but another reason is I just paid $25 to Republican Men's a couple months ago. Now they want to charge me $25 again. Money. I just don't like organizations that are money happy, I should say. But back to the Plan of Organization. The district Plan of Organization yields to the state Plan of Organization, and Carl Miska said that the district executive committee for District 3 is going to meet sometime after the state convention, in June, to discuss, or July, I think, is the next district meeting. At that meeting, they're going to discuss the Plan of Organizations and any change that the state party is going to make in June at the state convention. Election of officers. Okay. Like many conventions I went to in the 2019 cycle, these officers were reelected without debate, and they are Carl Miska, chairman from Craven County; David W., I don't know his last name, first vice chair, Pamlico County; Jana Fields, second vice chair from Greene County; Bev Boswell, who was an outstanding legislator in the state house. Bev Boswell is third vice chair. She is going to be in charge of legislative action, and she is from Dare County. Celia Wasserman, the great Celia Wasserman of Craven County, is going to serve as secretary/treasurer. Again, these were all elected without debate. They are elected with acclamation. Okay, congratulations to those officers on your 2-year term. Okay, Carl Miska then had went into a bit of a point of personal privilege. He says, and I agree with him 100% on what he said. He says he's really doesn't like people who run for office as a Republican, then they lose their election. Not only that, but they leave the party and they never come back. Carl Miska said, "We supported you, now you should support us." Very, very good statement there by our buddy Carl Miska. Okay. Now we go into probably the most controversial time of the convention, and this was the selection of at-large members to serve on the state executive committee. Okay. I probably could have left 2 hours early and saved myself a lot of heartache and could have had a leisurely dinner. But because I'm just one of the people who like to be at a convention from start to finish, I couldn't help myself. I stayed until 4 o'clock and then had to wolf down a couple burgers from Burger King for my dinner before going to District 2's convention. Okay, so the election of at-large officers for the executive committee. It should be noted that the state when you're on the state executive committee, you're expected to attend. It's about 4 meetings per year. This is according to Carl Miska, by the way, 3rd district chair. And also, there's a suggested donation of $10 a month or $120 a year to the state party. However, this is a suggested donation. It's not required. It's not a poll tax, but it is strongly encouraged. Okay. The 3rd district has 22 members at large, and these on the state executive committee. These members at large cannot be a county chair or a county vice chair, because they already sit on the state executive committee. So our first round of election was each county gets to select one member who they're going to protect. In other words, one member who automatically is appointed to the state executive committee without being voted on. Okay. So in Beaufort County, that member at large is Joe Knox. Okay. In Carteret County, it is Jan Grubb. Okay. In Camden County, there was nobody in attendance. Chowan County had Joseph Hollowell. Craven County was Celia Wasserman. Currituck County had no member. Dare County, first name was Anna. I did not get the last name. Okay. Greene County, Paula Wilson. Jones County, Patricia Hurley. Lenore County, Rusty Allen. Onslow County, Bill Lanier. Pamlico County, Linda Sanderson. Pasquotank County, Carl Pickle. Pitt County, Wagner Rao. And that is all for the protected members. Okay. Then we have a point of information on the floor from Jordan Hennessy. He says chairs and vice chairs are voted members of the state and district executive committee. Okay. Carl Miska, though, does a little research with the parliamentarian, and they look at the state plan of organization, and what they find is that, okay, the chair and vice chair of a county get one vote on the state executive committee, and what can happen is the vice chair of a county can act and be the vote if the county chairman does not attend a state executive committee. And then, hopefully, Carl Misk also said that the central committee thinks it's better than the executive committee. It's not. But if we elect the right chairman, a.k.a. Jim Womack, Carl Miska, by the way, does openly support Jim Womack, as do I. If we elect Jim Womack, we can shift the power back to the People's House, the executive committee. And he also says this confusion is starting to remind me of resolutions from last year. So we had a little bit back and forth of, who could serve on executive committee as far as a county chair or vice chair. But what I just said was that chair and a vice chair are members of the state executive committee. But as for a vote, the chairman of the county gets to vote, okay? The vice chairman is then kind of downgraded to guest. Now, hopefully that's something, again, we can clear up at the next state executive committee meeting, which will be the Sunday, the day after the state convention in Concord. Okay. So Representative Michael Speciale makes a motion to close nominations. There's a very loud aye. It's very louder than normal because people are being sarcastic, because for like the last 45 minutes we've had this debate over who can exactly serve on the state executive committee. And then it should be noted that, let's see. And then what happens is, okay, so after we get the names of the protected members, we nominate. I need to back up here a little bit, okay? After we get the protected members who are automatically voted on the executive committee, we then go to we go back and people have the opportunity to nominate the remaining, what is it? The remaining 12 members who are going to be elected on, or excuse me, the remaining 10 members who are going to be elected to the executive committee, okay? And it gets a little bit confusing because Bob Pruitt has the projector and the computer that does this a lot better. But what happens is at each table on the convention floor for each county, they get 15 names written on a piece of paper, okay? Each delegate gets to vote for up to 10. Now, they don't have to vote for, they can vote for 7, 5, or 4, but 10, they can vote for up to 10 names out of the 15 to serve on the state executive committee. Okay, so we have the election, okay, and these are the names that come out of this election, okay, and these are in addition to the names that were protected, that were automatically appointed to the executive committee already. So the elected members to the state executive committee for district number 3 are as follows: William Ehrenbright, Mary Bolton, Dave Fowler, Jordan Hennessy, Hal James, Cynthia LaCourte, Tamara Leonard, Carolyn Meadows, Steve Radner, the great Steve Radner, I should say, and Hazel Speciale. Okay. Then we have an announcement about the 50-50 raffle. The prize was $43. The winner was a lady by the name of Cynthia, and Carl Miska said, "The IRS is standing right outside that door to collect your tax." And everybody just went into a roar of laughter. It was great. And then Carl Miska explained that the last district fundraiser, which was held just a couple days ago, was very successful, and we didn't advertise open bar because of East Carolina University students. They would try to become new young Republicans. Another little joke right there. Okay, so then this convention adjourned at 3:58 p.m. So we had from start to finish, it was like over a 6.5 hour odyssey, but it was finally completed. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't as good as years past, but still, it was okay. So, for the Conservative Pelican, I am indeed Bobby Crawford. Thanks for watching.